James Kirk is a fictional character in the Star Trek media franchise. Originally played by Canadian actor William Shatner, Kirk first appeared in Star Trek, the original series, serving aboard the starship USS Enterprise as captain. Kirk leads his crew as they explore new worlds, new civilizations, and boldly go where no man has gone before. Often, the characters of Spock and Leonard McCoy act as his logical and emotional sounding boards, respectively. Kirk has also been portrayed in numerous films, books, comics, webisodes, and video games. Kirk first appears in Star Trek's first episode, The Man Trap, broadcast on September 8, 1966. Shatner continued in the role for the show's 3 seasons, and later provided the voice of the animated version of Kirk in Star Trek, the animated series. Shatner returned to the role for Star Trek, the motion picture, and in 6 subsequent films. The name, James Tiberius Kirk, is not part of the original series canon. In fact, the name is, in the second pilot, the first one starring William Shatner as Kirk, James R. Kirk. The new middle name was erroneously added in the animated series that followed the original live-action series. American actor Chris Pine portrays an alternative young version of the character in the 2009 Star Trek film. Pine reprised his role in Star Trek Into Darkness and in Star Trek Beyond. Other actors have played the character in fan-created media, and the character has been the subject of multiple spoofs and satires. James Tiberius Kirk was born in Riverside, Iowa, on March 22, 2233, where he was raised by his parents, George and Winona Kirk. Although born on Earth, Kirk lived for a time on Tarsus IV, where he was one of 9 surviving witnesses to the massacre of 4,000 colonists by Kodos the executioner. James Kirk's brother, George Samuel Kirk, is first mentioned in What Are Little Girls Made Of? And introduced and killed in Operation Annihilate, quote, comma. Leaving behind 3 children, Kirk became the first and only student at Starfleet Academy to defeat the Kobayashi Maru test, garnering a commendation for original thinking after he reprogrammed the computer to make the no-win scenario winnable. Kirk was granted a field commission as an ensign and posted to advanced training aboard the USS Republic. He was then promoted to lieutenant junior grade and returned to Starfleet Academy as a student instructor. According to a friend, students could either think or sink in his class, and Kirk himself was a stack of books with legs. Upon graduating in the top 5%, Kirk was promoted to lieutenant and served aboard the USS Farragut. While assigned to the Farragut, Kirk commanded his first planetary survey and survived a deadly attack that killed a large portion of the Farragut's crew, including his commanding officer, Captain Gorovic. Kirk became Starfleet's youngest starship captain after receiving command of the USS Enterprise for a 5-year mission, 3 years of which are depicted in the original Star Trek series. Kirk's most significant relationships in the television series are with First Officer Spock and Chief Medical Officer Dr. Leonard Bones McCoy. McCoy is someone to whom Kirk unburdens himself and is a foil to Spock. Robert Jewett and John Shelton Lawrence's The Myth of the American Superhero describes Kirk as a hard-driving leader who pushes himself and his crew beyond human limits. Terry J. Erdman and Paula M. Block, in their Star Trek 101 primer, note that while cunning, courageous and confident, Kirk also has a tendency to ignore Starfleet regulations when he feels the end justifies the means. He is the quintessential officer, a man among men and a hero for the ages. Although Kirk throughout the series becomes romantically involved with various women, when confronted with a choice between a woman and the Enterprise, his ship always won. Roddenberry wrote in a production memo that Kirk is not afraid of being fallible, but rather is afraid of the consequences to his ship and crew should he make an error in judgment. Roddenberry wrote, "Has any normal man's insecurities and doubts, but he knows he cannot ever show them, except occasionally in private with ship's surgeon McCoy or in subsequent moments with Mr. Spock, whose opinions Kirk has learned to value so highly." In Star Trek, the motion picture, Admiral Kirk is chief of Starfleet operations, and he takes command of the Enterprise from Captain Willard Decker. Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry's novelization of the motion picture depicts Kirk married to a Starfleet officer killed during a transporter accident. At the beginning of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Kirk takes command of the Enterprise from Captain Spock to pursue his enemy from Space Seed, Khan Noonien Singh. The movie introduces Kirk's former lover Carol and his son, David Marcus Spock, who notes that commanding a starship is first best destiny, dies at the end of Star Trek II. In Star Trek,